Hi guys, thanks again for joining me. I've got another heavy hitting video for you today. The title of the video is called The True Purpose of the Ego. I believe this is a topic we don't get to discuss very often, or we don't go in depth into, and I think there's a lot of important information available here for all of us to learn from. So in love and service to humanity, I'd like to share my perspective on this. Thank you. So if I could start by defining the average perception of what the ego is, I think it's kind of represented in a personality type, and that would be through an individual acting arrogantly, boastfully, flashy, like self-appraisal, and that sort of person. And that perspective does have some truth to it. However, like I've mentioned, I think the ego has a much greater purpose, and it can really be a helpful tool to us in our daily lives if we can learn to use it to our advantage. And so let's get into it. The ego really just represents the basic emotional requirements for survival in our physical reality. The ego elicits specific emotions in order to motivate you towards basic survival instincts. There are only 3 root emotions that the ego can elicit for survival purposes, and those 3 emotions are sadness, anger, and fear. So let's break these down one by one so we can understand them a little bit better. The first one I'd like to start with is sadness. The root emotion of sadness also includes feelings of depression, self-loathing, grief, loneliness, hopelessness, bitterness, disappointment, and rejection. The reason anyone feels sadness is because they feel they are lacking something. The survival purpose is to motivate you to move towards what you feel is lacking and making you sad. For a simple example, let's say you're a caveman or woman in a tribe, and the tribe has just excluded you. You feel abandoned and lonely, and you'll probably feel sadness as a result. This is to encourage you to move towards the direction of fulfilling that sadness by, in this case, becoming part of the tribe and thus increasing your chances of survival. Now, on the more extreme end of the scale of sadness, we have depression, which is fairly common in our world today. And really, it's just a more extreme form of feeling lack of something of great significance, or maybe it's perceived as unobtainable. Okay, so now that we understand sadness a little bit better and why we feel it, how can we use this information to benefit us? So here is the key. When we feel sadness, we are failing to realize only what we do not give can ever be lacking. This is because giving is the proof of having. Once given to oneself and others, the need will be fulfilled. So let's just say that one more time. When we feel sadness, we are failing to realize only what we do not give can ever be lacking. This is because giving is the proof of having. Once given to oneself and others, the need will be fulfilled. Okay, so let's take our example here again and apply it to this from this perspective. If we're back in the tribe and we're feeling like we're lacking connection, we're being excluded, we're lacking connection, safety, and maybe really as a result we're lacking love, it is only because we haven't been giving connection, safety, love to others and ourselves. If you are able to express the emotions and actions of what you feel is lacking, then nothing can ever be lacking. You will naturally exude the feeling and thus be in that vibration, and in turn attract that back to yourself, fulfilling the lack completely. Another way to think of it is, it's easy to love someone who loves themselves. It's harder to love someone who hates themselves. Who do you think attracts more love in their life? Someone who is angry and hateful, or someone who is loving and joyful? So be kind to yourself. Love yourself as a priority. And in reality, whatever you feel is lacking must be given to the self to be completely fulfilled, to be whole, to be one. No partner or material item can make you whole or make you feel loved enough if you don't first love yourself. So now let's talk about anger. The root emotion of anger also includes feelings of hate, envy, resentment, frustration, and irritation. We experience anger when we have a desired outcome that gets blocked. In general, if you insist on forcing reality to bend to your will in order to achieve an attached outcome, you will experience anger. Common examples of what things that people can become attached to are basically status of houses, of your car, of your job, of your partner, etc. Now, the survival mechanism here is that anger can assist you in getting the outcomes you require for survival. Imagine the example, you're back in the tribe, and for dinner that day, all that was caught was a small animal to eat, and it had to be shared amongst 100 people. One may use anger to get what they perceive as their fair share of the meal and to get what they believe they need for survival. This emotion also represents the expression that once I achieve X, a house, car, or job, or partner, then I'll truly be happy. If that house, car, or job, or partner gets blocked from my perceived future, then I will experience anger as I'm attached to that, achieving that outcome. The really crazy thing about this is, even if we do achieve the goal we set up in claims of true happiness, it will in fact not bring us true happiness, because true happiness exists within and not without. Therefore, if not understood at the root level, the cycle will repeat on to the next outcome and a continual treadmill of striving for the next goal. One day you will achieve everything on your list, and you'll probably find yourself still unhappy. The key here will be to remember that outcomes will always be good if you carry that perspective and intention, and that you must believe that you can actually affect outcomes with your anger, or you wouldn't get angry in the first place. Now, I do want to mention one exception to anger, as there's a bit of a twofold survival mechanism here. Anger can also protect you from others crossing your boundaries, so your physical, emotional, and mental boundaries. This in general is referred to as healthy anger. When a physical or moral boundary has been crossed, one may experience anger which provides feedback to the other individual, letting them know you will not tolerate what is being presented to you. That's the exception here. Okay, so finally let's talk about fear. The root emotion of fear also includes feelings of stress, worry, anxiety, panic, and paranoia. The survival mechanism for fear is to elicit an emotional response to avoid certain situations to keep you out of harm's way. If you didn't feel fear, you might just walk right into a lion's den and be eaten. Or you might walk too close to the edge of a cliff and fall. So from this perspective, fear is a very helpful tool to assist us in avoiding dangerous situations. The issue we get into regarding fear is that it can be overwhelming and paralyzing if we perceive dangerous situations all the time, all around us. When we get overwhelmed with fear, it is because we feel out of control and unsure of what the results of our future will be. The key here will be to remember that you can't control anything besides yourself in reality, and how you show up and feel and act and in an honoring way. If you can honor yourself in that regard, the outcome will always be good. Remember to have trust in the universe, that anything put forth in front of you is for a good reason, even if it appears to be bad. There are always lessons and perspectives to be gained that will only serve you. As you let go and trust yourself and understand that the universe is here for your benefit and that all outcomes are good, your fears will disappear. Okay, so now that we've gone through all three emotions in detail, you probably noticed something. I've made reference to each emotion as a survival mechanism, and the connection there would be the survival phrase, fight, flight, or freeze, which relates precisely to sadness, anger, and fear. I thought that was pretty neat, and there's also a couple more significances here. So sadness, anger, fear is fight, flight, fight, and freeze, which is also related to the root, sacral, and solar plexus chakras. And in Buddhism, they have three sayings for the same thing. So sadness would be ignorance of our true nature. Anger would be attachment to an outcome like we discussed. And fear is resistance. So it's pretty neat to point out. And I think really what this is all saying, there's different ways to say it, different ways to explain it. But this is all pointing to the fact that these emotions are the basic building blocks of conscious life. And I think it's really important to start learning how we can understand these emotions and use them to our advantage instead of letting them run us freely. Because the truth is, unfortunately, no matter how hard you try, you cannot turn off the ego. You can only exist in harmony alongside it. So let's break this down. One last time, I'd like to give you 3 phrases that are helpful when you're experiencing these emotions to help reframe your situation. So let's start. If you are experiencing sadness, then you must believe you are lacking something. Find out what that is and give it freely, as giving is the proof of having. Then you will find you were never lacking anything at all. Okay. If you are experiencing anger, then you must believe that an outcome you are hoping for has been blocked. Hey, someone took my parking spot. How dare they? However, in reality, nothing bad has happened, as your happiness isn't dependent on outcomes. Your happiness is an inner state of being. And the last phrase. If you are experiencing fear, then you must believe you are not in control and are unsure of an outcome. It would be helpful to remember that you cannot control reality or others, and would you really want to anyways? In essence, all you can control is yourself, your perceptions, your reactions, and if you focus on that, things will always work out in your best interest. Let go, reflect, and radiate your true nature. Why not ride the roller coaster that is life? It could be a lot of fun. So in closing, as we consider the ego and its impact on us, I want to mention one more point, and I think it's really exciting, so listen up. As mentioned, the ego represents the basic building blocks of consciousness, the foundational emotions of sadness, anger, and fear, which are required for basic survival. So the question here would be, what is the next building block? What is the next step? The next emotion in the evolution of consciousness? Well, here's where the good news lies. The 4th building block of consciousness is love, the heart chakra, which, as you have probably noticed, a lot of what I discuss involves the emotions of love and our shift towards that perspective. This is no coincidence. The good news is that once we master and understand sadness, anger, and fear, it can ultimately lead us to know ourselves better and to a higher perspective, the perspective of love and oneness, as love is a connection between all. One cannot tell you about unconditional love. One must experience and practice unconditional love to truly and fully understand it. It's time to stop relying and trusting the ego representing our intellect. As we move from surviving to thriving, it's time to start relying and trusting your heart, your connection to everything. If you start to use the emotion of love and move our perceptions towards love, a higher level of wisdom and understanding can be achieved, and I believe that is the evolution of all living things. Thank you so much for listening. Love you all.